As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Hey, this is Tyler.
And I'm KC.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast.
And Zeta Peanut Butter. What's happening, all my woods people? We are here in the truck again. It's back to our old ways of truck casting. And this is the next 4 months for us, probably. Just casting from the truck. KC sitting here driving.
That's right.
Full of Taco Bell.
Driving and surviving for sure.
Lacking energy, lacking caffeine. So he's just going to be over here and keeping us down the lane here. But
we have to pay a toll
within
a mile, guys. Good. We're going to have to...
Better get to the story quick.
Yep. So that was podcast. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Now, we'll see you on the backside of this toll.
Yeah.
Oh. All right, the toll is over. We paid the bridge troll at the toll, and we are back on the road. She said, "Be safe out." So, Tyler and I have come up with a standard of what is the South and what is not. Your ranch and home stores can't have a long A or a like Scandinavian / German.
You mean like
sound
mom jeans, long A?
Yeah, exactly. Menards. If you see a Menards, you're not in the South yet.
Yeah.
If you see a Schleyenbachel or what, Orschlins, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you see one of those, it's not the South. But if you see a Tractor Supply or an Atwoods or something like that, you've made it down south again. And we have been up north.
If you see a Hootens.
If you see a Hootens, you're real close to the South. You actually might be in the epicenter, as they say.
Epicenter, that's it, man.
We're driving home from Nebraska, which has a southern feel sometimes, but it's pretty far northern latitude. But it's dusty and hot, which is a pretty southern thing to be, I'd say.
I like that word.
Did I use it?
No, I like it, though.
Did I use the word latitudinal?
No.
Okay. I was like, I don't even remember saying that. Yeah, that's a good one, for sure. And Nebraska was pretty cool, man.
It was.
And my first time hunting there.
Especially at night.
Yeah, it was at night, for sure. Some nights. One night it wasn't.
Yeah.
I had to get the fan out for Tyler.
Let me just tell you this. You wear a 15-degree bag all night, it ain't cool at all.
You don't have like a different sleeping bag that's a little bit like a cooler
sir.
version?
I didn't grow up camping. So
yeah.
No, we hoteled it when we went hunting. So, yeah, I got, I don't know, in Texas, really camping's not a thing that happens a lot.
It isn't, no, not too much.
You know, people there's like this stigma that's created by people from the north, as KC likes to call them, Yankees. They paint this whole like, oh, summertime fun picture or whatever, where like, you know, Chevy commercials show these people like smiling and windows down and stuff. You know, summertime, it's time to go hang out at the lake and go fishing and camping at night and having campfires at night. And down in Texas, we're like surviving under a rock with the rattlesnakes. You know, it's like, this is crispy hot all the time.
Yeah.
It don't matter if it's night or day. So
some of my toughest nights ever have been camping nights.
Yeah.
On the side of the river. We used to take kayaks down the river and sleep on the bank, and it'd be like 84, you know, and you're trying to sleep, and that don't work for me very good. I know that I can make it work because I try to not be soft, but at the same time, I'm not all that tough either, you know, so like at least I don't try to be, you know, so I'm willing to admit that that's pretty miserable and I don't want to do it too much.
It's good, man.
Yeah.
You're softening up in your old age.
I guess so, yeah.
I can tell you this, man, for me, about ideal temperature for camping is probably around 40. That's a good temp, man.
I don't know, that's a little cold. If it's windy and 40, you're toast. But I think that, like, if it's windy and 55, you're still in pretty good shape.
I love getting in my bag when it's 40 degrees as the lowest low and just sleeping all night. I can sleep so good when it's 40 degrees.
We're going to do that in about a month.
Yep.
We're going to South Dakota with the whole crew. We went to Nebraska with the...
It was sub-freezing up there last time.
It was. We have some frost.
Man.
But there'll be some 40s for sure while we're there.
Good.
Went with the OGs to Nebraska this week, and we're about to talk about that. But first, we want to do something. All right, y'all? We want to talk about shirts.
We need to talk about shirts,
man.
actually.
Here's the deal. We are a little poor.
We are.
After... I'll tell y'all this. We had a thunderstorm come through, and it rocked our world, and we ended up getting a motel a couple nights while we were out on this trip, and it worked out.
Because the thunderstorm sprayed water on us all night.
We were pretty wet.
We didn't sleep. So we got 2 nights at a hotel.
That's part of the story. We'll get there. But what we're trying to say...
They weren't expensive hotels, but they weren't cheap. And
as Labor Day weekends, we got price hacked is what happened. But we need to do a little funding, and the way y'all can help us... All right, is to go and buy some merchandise on our website. We've got a bunch of new T-shirts that Tyler designed that got some cool logos on them.
We are literally out of money.
We are. I got a season shirt on right now, the SZN, and then he's got
the
on
university look, man.
Yeah, that's a cool
collegiate
shirt, man.
Element shirt. It's got
there's also there's a black one like this one too that has the antlers on it. I like that one a lot as well.
Yeah, they're the antlers are the Illinois buck from last year, actually.
Yeah,
and he's just a good clean 8, so made for a good logo.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then there's going to be some new hoodies pretty soon too.
Yeah,
so,
we've got the new hoodies. My wife is picking them up today as we speak right now. So we will have the new hoodies in stock. They're ready to be ordered at the website, which is elementwild.com.
We'll get them
/shop.
Get them shipped out to this week probably if you buy one. So we would really appreciate it if y'all like what we do and want to support us. That would be a really great help. And then also just tell all your friends about us. That helps too.
Yeah.
So with that out of the way, let's talk a little Nebraska, man. Tyler, I have never hunted Nebraska. You've hunted it twice, and every time you tell me you're not going back. And
I'm glad you talked me into it.
I talked you into it, yeah. It went pretty good this year. If you follow us on social, which you should, you kind of know what we're alluding to. But we won't do the whole tell the end of the story at the beginning. We will go chronologically to a certain extent. At the same time, it doesn't make a very, very good story to spend much time on the travel, I don't think. You know, it's an outdoor TV kind of thing that people do. Like, yeah, let's get in the truck and go, I'll meet the buddies at the gas station and go, but...
Oh, here we are at the outfitter. We're going to shake some hands and pretend like we haven't met yet.
That's right. And my good old buddy, John Leroy here, I've known him for years. But anyways, no, Tyler and I went to Nebraska and hunted public land, and it was a pretty sweet experience. We decided that we would go up there, give ourselves a whole day of scouting to be able to drive around to all these little parcels and check them out and make sure we wanted to be where we were going to be and yada yada. We of course took a little longer on the way up, because there was, I think, multiple Taco Bell and kombucha stops along the way. So we got into that boat. But we got there in time to do some, end-of-the-day glassing.
Yeah.
And it was kind of at a spot that we didn't expect to do a lot of scouting. But we ended up going in, bombing in anyways, because you don't want to, waste that amount of time if you don't have to, right? So what do you think you learned from that first evening of scouting, Tyler?
Man, I'm trying to even think where that was.
It was at that place where we parked on the side of the highway and jumped the fence and walked in about 0.3 of a mile.
Yeah. What do you think? What do I think I learned from that?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know if I learned a lot actually from that because I think that what I thought at that point was actually different than what I think now. About that particular area. So,
okay.
We hunted several different areas and different types of habitats and stuff on this trip, which I've done in the past too. I mean, last year especially, 2 years ago, Anthony and I went up and we hunted, pretty much one particular area for 5 days or 4 days or something like that. And so, but then last year I moved it's a statewide tax. You move all over the state, and I pretty much the last 2 years have done that, and it's been cool, but it's been also very difficult, and it's a struggle. There's some areas have more mosquitoes than others, and it's not necessarily like an area of the state, but more just an area that you're hunting. You know what I mean? Like it could be lowland, wetland type stuff that has a ton of mosquitoes, or it might not. And we didn't encounter nearly as many mosquitoes this year as I did in the past two. So, but like for me, I just this new first spot that we're talking about, we tried to make something of it for a few days, and it was difficult.
So and since you changed your opinion about stuff, what did you think you learned that first night at least?
I thought I learned that I thought that I would pretty much was just reaffirming what you and I was in our minds going up there, is that there's going to be quite a few deer around. This is going to be fun, and this ag is probably a good spot to focus on. But I also thought, well, there's deer just living out there, and there are, but there's definitely a lot easier path to hunting a deer this time of year, and it's called ag.
Well, that was the thing, and we had done quite a bit of research on this stuff, and we had used that Onyx crop layer quite a bit. You get on there and you go down. It's actually in your hunt layers, and you can scroll down and it shows 2020 crop layers.
Mm-hmm.
Turn them all on, and it'll show you what the fields were in last year, which is pretty handy, except for corn and beans, because that gets kind of mixed up, but you can kind of do a little bit of subtraction or whatever you want to say, some swapping around, and decide what it's going to be. But the stuff that we saw was in hay production. And what I've kind of noticed is that can be a gambit of things. But there is a particular alfalfa layer, and that stuff was not that. But I was in hopes that it would be possibly alfalfa or clover or something like that.
But you made a good observation after we kind of realized that deer were using those hay fields, where we were like, man, it's just, I guess just when they're cutting it, the green stuff comes up, and that's part of it, no doubt. But KC was like, well, there's clover coming up in there, and if you know anything about food plotting or anything, and I don't know much at all, so I may be speaking out of line here, but I think that clover really likes to be cut. Like people talk about mowing clover a lot, and I think that when it gets mowed, for one, anything that comes up, sprouts up or shoots up off of, an established root system even, is going to be nutrient rich and tender at first, So that clover probably tasted pretty good.
One of the problems that we were running into is that those crop layers were correct, but some of these places were not always cut, and they are cut just some years and some years not. And what we were finding is that the fields that were in hay production perennially often and getting cut often were the ones that the clover would come up into, and the deer would spend time.
Yes.
If it was the first time that had been cut this season, them deer didn't care. It was just grass, But the places that we saw where, it's like they've been cutting it all summer long, and they did it all last year too. That's where you'd have clover, and that's what the deer were hitting.
I think they're doing maybe some emergency haying and stuff, so they're maybe cutting even more of that stuff than they do in the have done in the past, because a lot of that, from Nebraska up through Montana and all that has had a really rough summer as far as drought goes. So.
But that first evening, what we did observe is that we saw deer that were moving into those hay fields at night. Now, who knows if they were spending time there a bunch, or if they were just kind of in there checking things out. I don't know. But that was the pattern that we kind of decided to stick with for the next couple of days. The next morning, we went and glassed over a whole bunch of country, got up on a tall spot, and looked over some really good habitat and saw some deer. It was a pretty good haul back in there. And but we didn't see a ton of bucks, which ends up kind of being a motif of the trip. I don't know. We have friends that have hunted in similar areas. You've hunted in Nebraska pretty close and stuff like that, and it's just like, man, it just, something was up with the drought year or something where bucks just weren't around as much as you'd expect. I mean, we did see a lot of deer in our time driving around, glassing, hunting, and all that, and most of them would be does. And not even, but you don't even see the dinkers that much.
I know.
I'm not saying we didn't see mature bucks. I'm not saying we didn't see bucks.
That's right. We didn't see 1-year-olds that were spikes and forkies and stuff. we also kind of made friends up there with some different people around camp and around, places we were hunting and stuff. Where you see a hunter, you stop and say what's up, if you're passing them or whatever. So, but one guy that we had in the campground showed us a picture of a deer that he had found that day, and it was a good solid buck, and it was just dead in a kind of a swamp, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that would make you real sad because, it's remote area out there. A lot of stuff is. Half the people don't even trust the government to even talk about stuff like this, So there might have been an EHD kill going on that nobody really knew about, or that hasn't gotten out. But, that deer, he said, didn't have any holes in it or anything. So.
They say deer die of COVID, too.
Do they?
I've heard they can get it. And
I've heard they tested positive. I didn't know that they've died from it. I don't know. That would stink. Yeah. But maybe you eat those and then you have antibodies. I'm going to label for fake news, so please don't censor me. But next morning we did see one buck that I would have been willing to shoot. Tyler and I kind of had a little bit different, not expectations. What's the word I'm looking for?
Is this opening morning? Or is this the
no? This is the scouting morning.
Yeah.
I guess standards. We had a little bit different standards. I think I was willing to shoot a 2-year-old plus. You were really trying to hold out for a 3-year-old plus.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know. This is kind of what we wanted out of the trip, and neither of us are wrong for it. It's just kind of where we were personally.
I didn't shame you or anything.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to make sure that I'm
making a point that people love to.
I'm not criticizing you for holding out for a bigger deer.
No,
either.
I know.
That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
My point is on the forums and stuff, and in the Facebook groups. Yeah. Dudes will definitely be pretty mean to each other.
And also, good luck actually aging a deer in September in the Midwest.
For real.
They're all way bigger than what we have, and they all have doe necks. So, it's like, I don't know. Anyways, that was a buck I would shoot, and then, man, that place started crawling with dudes. There's quite a few people around, it seems, so we kind of shot away from that. And that evening, where did we end up scouting that evening? I don't even remember.
Was it the one where we both went really far in,
and I
didn't see a single deer?
Yeah, and that's when I saw a bunch of does, and I saw one little buck, but he was like a mile away. And
dude, I probably went close to 1.25 miles of walking, and not just like easy walking necessarily either. But I wasn't going through like thick brush or anything, which in East Texas this would be, considered difficult. But
yes.
Just lots of up and down and stuff. And dude, did not see a deer. And I went to a place where there should have been deer. Like according to all the habitat and, thoughts that we had going in and stuff. This is a place that should hold deer. We've seen deer at this point already, right?
A good bit of Nebraska is just open country, right? So whenever you're in that type of country, if you can find spots with some tall grass or some trees or whatever, there's a good chance there should be deer there.
This spot sits 1.5 miles from any road.
I know, dude.
It should have deer. And I didn't see a single deer. I sat there and glassed a lot of country all night. Places that had water, which is key, and that had tons of cover. And green stuff growing around the water, and it's like, man, this is a place where a doe family group could live at the very least, and I didn't see a deer. And I had, some other issues, but
it's a weird deal. I don't know why that's the case, but I hunted some stuff throughout the week that was kind of the same deal. It's like, I'm thinking about, well, that's further in the story. We'll talk about it later. But there's some times when I didn't see deer, and I thought I should have. But that evening, I did see quite a few does and learned some stuff. But nothing that really helped us put all the pieces together that we thought we should have. And
you also kind of go up there hoping to not have to walk 1.5 miles just to kill a 2-year-old buck. Not to make any light of killing a 2-year-old buck, but like, you killed a bigger one, and just to be able to do that when in a place that dudes killed those type of bucks in the past. On like stuff way closer to the road, it's like, man, can we get this done closer?
And that's and
have some more fun. Go shoot sharp tails and dove and stuff like that.
One of the things with this state is that it's one of the first ones to open, and so really any opener around the country, no matter September, October, whatever, you would kind of hope the deer are a little bit dumb, because they haven't been hunted in a couple months, and at least for the first day, you're thinking, well, I'm going to pop in here, be the only guy at this area, and these deer aren't going to know what hit them, and I'm going to shoot them, a quarter mile from the road. And that was kind of my mentality heading to Nebraska, and that just wasn't something that ended up happening. Now, we did, however, see deer pretty close to the road quite a few times, but in particular, opening morning, this is, start talking about flaws and mistakes and stuff like that. I don't know if it was a mistake.
I thought you were supposed to be the great white hunter.
Man, I am supposed to be, but I fail.
That's what people do
a lot. I know, dude.
Space, right?
Oh, they just call it a beast tactic. If you go in and don't see anything, you just say, "Oh, I was hunting beast style." So I'm not trying to crack too hard on people, man. If you hunt like that and you have success, good job. But I think it's kind of funny, the whole I didn't see a deer for 15 days, and all of a sudden a giant showed up, and that makes you, a giant killer. Well, yeah, it does, but it also makes you a guy who wasted 15 days of just sitting there. But anyways,
could have been eating Taco Bell.
I personally did not feel like I was prepared for opening morning outside of a guess as to where deer would be, and I think you were kind of in the same boat, and I didn't have all my camera stuff together, which, if y'all are listening to this, I say this time and time again, we might even make a shirt that says it. That says, if you're interested in self-filming, don't be interested in anymore, because it ends up making things a lot harder, and just, you lose deer because of it. And I think that morning was probably part of that, because I didn't have any of my camera stuff together. I didn't have my hunting pack packed or none of that, So
did it rain on us that night, or was it the next night?
It was the next night.
Okay.
So Tyler and I decided to go ahead and do an observation sit the next morning and go to one of these places that had some haying going on at it, and just sit there and do some glassing and hang out together and bounce ideas off of each other, which is a good thing to do when you're kind of like, well, I don't know what to do. But at the same time, it's not a great way. It's my least favorite way to spend opening morning. I'm the guy, you and I think a little bit different on this, I believe. I feel like my efforts are best served if I am in a tree with a bow and arrow in my hand. I do not like to sit back and observe.
Well, I'm not the ultimate observer either.
Yeah.
There's guys, man, that, and I think a guy that's a killer, Tony Peterson. He's been on the podcast.
I was thinking about Tony as well. Tony Treach. They both do it.
Oh, yeah. Tony Treach will sit there for 3 months, it seems like, and the next thing you know, there's 14 dead animals on his Instagram handle. You're like, what just happened? But, there's dudes that do it that way and are good at it. I'm a little more towards your side of things, where I like to be in a stand. It's hard for me what's really hard for me, more even than just observing, is to go sit in a stand that I'm probably going to be observing, but I got a chance of shooting something. I would rather just either observe or get into the mix most of the time. Not to say I won't be in the mix on the conservative side of the wind or whatever, but just if it's the deer are going to probably be moving down this line of trees over here, but to see them, I got to sit 80 yards off. Dude, no, thank you. Put me in there on the downwind side, let me hunt, or just put me on a hill a mile away with a spot and scope. You know what I mean? Yeah. One or the other. I ain't walking a mile back in there to sit 80 yards from where I think the deer are going to be. So that's kind of I'm more to your side of things here, but I just know, like you said, Nebraska's got a lot of open country in the state, and I think there's a good opportunity to see things work for you and go make things happen. And we ended up seeing things happen that morning and almost made it happen that night. I felt like we should have it. It's an unfortunate deal, man, really. But so we sat on a hill not far from one of the hay meadows that you had talked about.
Had a drastic miscalculation in this thing too, where we ended up glassing downwind of us, which is a bad deal. And here's a problem that we were running into. The whole state of Nebraska. Okay, it took us a little while to figure this out, but the whole state of Nebraska on Weather Underground, the wind directions were inverted.
Yeah.
So whenever it called for a southwest, you would have a northeast. And it wasn't just like a mess up, like a little individual thing. It's like they have their wind flag turned 180 degrees.
Yeah.
So by day 3, we were just looking and saying, okay, the reverse of that is this. That's what
you figured it out. I'm glad you did, because I would have just been like, I don't know what in the world is going on.
Yeah.
I would have just clocked out and been like, I guess I'm just going to have to stick my finger in the wind to get before I go somewhere, you know?
Yeah, it was bad. So that's what we did that first morning, though, is we're like, oh, the wind will be good. Then we get up there, and it's not. And then all of a sudden, deer start popping out, and we're like, well, we can't get up because they're definitely going to spook that way.
Yeah, and we're not glassing downwind from a mile. We're glassing downwind from like 300 yards.
Yeah.
So, that's essentially what happens is we're sitting there. And I think we're looking at a few does that are coming out or something, or maybe a small group of bachelor bucks.
Like filtering down from the left.
A bunch of 1.5s.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're not downwind or anything, but all of a sudden you say, man, there's deer running. You know? And so I'll look over, and there's deer like jumping, and they're like half mile away or whatever. They're just jumping up in this tall stuff. And they end up... Well, we put glass on them. We're like, they're bucks, you know. We've got spot scope and everything, and we end up watching them make their way all the way down to like 200 yards from us or whatever, and basically at the same time that all these does and other small bachelor group of bucks come out, and all these deer are sitting down in the corner of this hay meadow next to a tree where they could be killed. On the upwind side of the tree too.
Yeah.
And
so if we had decided we wanted to hunt that place that morning, these would probably be the trees that we would have pushed into to hunt.
Well, there's only two of them.
Yeah.
We had to pick one or the other, and they're within range and downwind of both of them. Or upwind of both of them. So, and the two bucks that I'm talking about are both like 2 to 3 year old 8 points. You said I didn't get a look at them, but like decent
I think
eights.
They're both 3-year-olds.
They're like decent eights. You know, like it's the class of buck that at least one of us is going to shoot, right? If not both of us. And so anyway, they all kind of catch our wind at the same time, which got weird because those bucks kind of pushed out and nosed those does real briefly and then got our wind. And so I thought, well, maybe they, you know, since they're hanging out with those does and things got weird and does got weird before they did and everything, like maybe it's kind of a rut situation where the buck's not paying a whole lot of attention to what's going on. And it wasn't, apparently. Those deer kind of flipped out, took off running, and they went back into this just basically mostly just grass and sunflowers.
It's lowland cover stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of just really tall stuff because Nebraska's arid. Anywhere that it's low, it's going to be a little wetter, and there was just super tall grass in there, and it was good habitat. And you just assume they'd run off in there, and that's where they'd be.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, that was like essentially a wind bump, like you hear other people talking about, that we just did. So they have no reason to just be super scared because deer season hasn't started yet. We're going to go back there tonight and hunt those bucks.
Dump them.
Yeah, we're going to do the dump of the bump.
We're going to dump them.
That's right. So we
the bumpty dump
strategized, and we decided that I'd hunt on a different end of that big habitat stuff, and Tyler would go in and hunt right where we saw those deer.
K.C. gave me the first man up mentality thing.
Well, you have a score to settle in Nebraska, and I'm still trying to figure out what game we're playing. So it's different. And I wanted you to go in there and dadgum kill a buck, man. That's what I wanted to happen.
Me too.
Because it was a little bit selfish of me because I was like, man, if he goes in and kills one on day one, all I got to do is help him pack this thing out, and then I got a cameraman the rest of the time. I don't have to mess with none of this stuff,
That's right.
But that didn't end up happening. We both went into our respective places. One of the things we ran into on this trip that is good and bad is that there's two of us, and so we can just kind of share the load of going on an out-of-state trip together and bounce ideas off each other. And if y'all
scout different places,
if y'all know us, you know this is how we work, and it works well. But a thing that happens when you're in one of these parts of the country where two of you may want to hunt in different areas because, I mean, let's face it, a lot of times one area doesn't have a spot for two dudes, or at least good ones.
Somebody's going to get the B spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I kind of took the B spot, but I was also just kind of wanted to learn, and I thought that there was a good chance. And I saw some deer, but ended up being another wind situation where the wind was not what I thought it was going to be. Just kind of a weird thermally kind of thing, and ended up I just was winding everything that I thought I was going to be hunting, which newsflash, guys, we are not the professionals, right? I was actually using beast tactics that night, and
you were.
That was, I didn't want to have them too close to me. But anyways, I didn't have a great hunt. You, on the other hand, saw quite a few deer.
I had a really good hunt, actually.
Yeah.
And I was hoping this was kind of going to be the motif throughout the week where we were able to find something finally and go in and make a move, and it would be a good hunt. And it really it wasn't that way, but that night it was. And so I set up in one of those trees, and the way it laid out is it was next to some water, and so like it pinched the deer between kind of that water and the hay meadow. The cover did, and so it all like this huge swath of lowland grass and sunflowers and all kinds of different kinds of bedding habitat and stuff, small plum thickets and whatever, all filters down to a 70-yard spot or 80-yard spot here between the meadow and the water, and then from there goes up into miles of more hay meadows and stuff. And so it sets up nice. Like, I'm feeling real good about this spot. And so I go in and get set up, and willow, which is there may be a whole hour-long podcast that needs to be had on how to set up in a willow tree, because they're difficult. But I get up in there and got a few shots and stuff. And
if you're listening in Texas or in the South or wherever, and you're thinking about willow trees just being these tall, straight things that are around water, that ain't how it is whenever you're in the Midwest or wherever.
Bush willows, that's what they call them.
That's what they call them, I think. Yeah. They have stickers, not stickers, but just like suckers and limbs sticking off every 6 inches.
Yeah.
Man.
It was difficult, but I got up in there, got it set up, got some shots, and basically had every single deer, long story short, come past me that night that we had seen the morning before, plus maybe 2 does. And as they're coming through, I'm like, this is good. It's about to happen. That's going to be right before dark, but it's going to happen. And just ran out of light, never saw the 2 bucks. And so I don't know what the deal was, but got out of there, was hoping to be as quiet as possible and get out as quick as possible so I didn't spook those bucks if they were like coming through in the dark or whatever, and give them another chance the next morning. I don't think we actually hunted them the next morning. The next day, I hunted them a morning later, I think, right?
I don't remember it. See, it gets all mixed up at this point in time, and it's pretty hard for me to do chronological.
The next morning, that was the night we had the rainstorm come through.
Oh.
The next morning, we didn't hunt because we got blasted all night.
Dude.
We didn't sleep hardly at all.
No, from 1 to 5, we didn't sleep.
Yeah.
We went to bed at 11.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. When you come up here and start hunting early season, dude, the end of shooting light is like in the 8:30s, 8:40s. Yeah. So, like, it's a late night whenever you pack up all your stuff, end up driving back to camp. You still need to eat somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Supper has to happen.
Yeah.
You end up going to bed at 11 and getting up at 4:45.
That's terrible.
And you start doing math, that ain't meeting the 6 hours of like necessity pretty much for me, and you do that for a couple nights in a row, and then you mix in a like 4 hour long torrential thunderstorm. Like, this wasn't just rain.
No, talking about. At one point, I'm thinking the tent's blowing down
it
right
was
now.
Bad, dude. It was real bad.
And it just dripped this little misty drip on us all night on your head. Like, you had to cover your face just so you could try to get sleep, and you just lay there awake still, because all of a sudden there'd be some weird wind come from the north that just, you're like, oh, tornado, here we go. We're about to go Dorothy up in the air here. But anyway, we didn't hunt that next morning.
Which is a missed hunt. So there's 2 morning hunts that are missed hunts. And you know what I like a lot in the early season?
What's that?
Morning hunts.
Yeah.
So because it's cooler in the mornings.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a detriment.
It also rained that morning, I believe, right? So that's another reason
I think
we
it was
didn't go.
still
It was supposed to rain
raining.
or something, but
yeah. And you know what? Honestly, I'll go out and try to hunt in the rain. It makes filming difficult, but
you pair that with not sleeping.
Yeah,
and
not sleeping and getting rained on in a tent. Like, if we're somewhere where we're staying in a motel or a house or something like that, you can just get ready, dry, and go. You know, but like trying to get ready to go on a hunt when it's coming down is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Or almost impossible.
Yeah.
So that's probably why we missed that morning. So
somewhere in there, either this midday or the last midday of opening day or whatever, we stomped around, did a bunch of walking actually, and I was pretty tired from this. I didn't realize until after we dove hunted. Because it was open day of dove and grouse as well. And we saw the world's most magical grouse ever. It disappeared from us at one point. And then we killed, 10 dove or something like that, walking them up, and it was fun, man. It was a good time.
We didn't get to do as much of it as I wish we would have, because we're whitetail hunting. We're there to have fun, and that's why we went ahead and got, everything it took to dove hunt. But at the same time, sooner or later, you're like, okay, I need to stop just playing and make sure. Yeah. Like, if we'd have had deer located and had good ideas for every evening, we would have done more dove hunting.
Yeah.
But a lot of time I was spending on the maps. We also ended up doing hot meals midday. That way we could just come home and throw a sandwich together, because it's good to have one hot meal a day. So we'd cook during the middle of the day, eat some fajita chicken or something like that. And then, anyways, we ended up dove hunting that first day. And then where did we hunt the first evening? Oh, we hunted, I kind of made the call on where we hunted, and I pushed into a really good bedding area spot.
We started doing, we started flip-flopping on the A-B spots. So we decided, well, this day K.C. would do, get the choice, and I would hunt around him, and vice versa the next day or whatever. So
and that was I felt pretty good about that. It was one of those all or nothing sits and beast style,
That's it, man. That's it.
And I
you're a regular old beast
That's
hunter.
right. And I got the nothing side of it. I don't think I actually saw a deer that night, which was one of the only nights that truly happened to me.
Was that the night that I hunted the south side of that
Yes,
deal?
it was. Yeah, and you actually had a pretty good hunt there, too.
I did. I saw like a dozen deer.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw any bucks, and I had only one doe come past me the way that I really wanted them to. I could see a lot of country, too.
Our plan before we went up there was to, in the evenings, hunt bed to feed and try to get in between deer, and in the mornings try to be in the mix of bedding areas that we had kind of predetermined what that would be on the map and stuff, and then confirm some of that with our eyeballs. And that evening you went in to kind of get in between deer and food, and I think you ended up being a little too far from the food. Didn't you see a lot more deer between you and food?
I only saw on the line of bed to food that I was hunting, I only saw, I think, 3 deer that came through that would have been on that line that weren't on my side, and then the rest of them were on other sides coming over hills and wherever else. And then the one that I had come by me was a single doe. She came, it was money, dude. I'm talking broadside, 20 yards, never had a clue I was there. Wind was perfect. Could have smoked her,
But it's Nebraska, and you're looking for a buck.
Well, and all those deer came through before 7:30. Still had an hour left or more.
I guess
shooting.
That's an early season thing, because I always think that and you say this, and this is why you like evenings a lot, because you're always building towards it's getting better and better and better until you can't shoot no more.
That's why I like it better. Or that's how I think about it.
But early season kind of didn't really seem to be that way. A lot of times we saw movement up until sunset, and then there wouldn't be anything else. It's like I guess they are just comfortable and nobody's messing with them. Right. So, we talked about this, in the human sense, after you've been sitting down for about 6 hours, you're ready to get up, find a snack, and go do something, And if they feel like there's danger out there, then they will suppress that for a while, go find them a staging area or something. But, these deer were just like, it's 6:30, let's go with the food, We saw that a lot. And then I don't know how the next few days played out, really. There's nothing too monumental sighting-wise to make sure that we talk about it. But pretty much we spent our mornings and evenings hunting.
Started working real hard, pushing in a little bit further.
And we were driving around midday, looking for new places to hunt, driving here, there, and everywhere.
Yep.
What you'll run into on these trips as well is that you end up burning through some gas, because it's 45 minutes here, 30 minutes over there, trying to look at all this stuff, And sooner or later you kind of make some interesting discoveries and see some things and end up hunting some new spots. And throughout all this, we actually did find a place that we were interested in. It was a little bit different type of habitat than what we were looking at. It was thicker country, more trees and that sort of stuff. And you and I talked about this, but one of the appealing things about open country is that you can kind of pinpoint where you think the deer are going to be in habitat. And where there is actually good deer habitat, that's where they're at. And whenever it's, cattle grazed grass, they're not there. But then you start hunting these places that are pretty heavily wooded, and it's like, okay, well, really, the only way for me to determine where these deer are going to be is to get in there, find a trail, find sign, or yada yada, which we can do.
Yeah.
Right. But if you can do it on the map and just take a lot of that boot work out and shoot 1 3/4 from, or 0.3 of a mile from the road, that's great.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think there's also this thing you see in the more wooded country where there's more ag too. So like you possibly have a chance for the habitat is greater, the ag is greater, maybe there's more deer around, and then B, you have some options for what you pretty much know will be destination. Whereas like even those hay fields weren't like hard draws for them. No. It wasn't like a green bean field or alfalfa or even corn. It was like the deer kind of migrating up that way, but not like some deer I had seen when we were hunting hay fields, like we're kind of going almost opposite of the direction that I thought they would go, So that's one thing that gives you an advantage, I guess, in that more wooded country, And so we went and looked at a bunch of different stuff, and we decided at some point that we were going to go try to hunt something different.
Yeah.
Just with the lack of bucks, we driving around and stuff, we weren't seeing bucks. And, if you're walking a mile and a quarter in and looking at these pockets that are so remote and not seeing bucks or even deer sometimes, like something has to change, And which this may be saying something bad about me, but I was ready ahead of you on that, I was not giving it probably its due attempt or whatever.
We had pretty much made it to like about near day 4, and I felt like we hadn't even really hunted like we would like to, if you know what I mean.
And that's all the morning misses.
That's a stinky thing about one of these out-of-state hunts, where it's like, man, if you miss a couple hunts because of one thing or another, like you're missing out at that point in time because you haven't gained all the information you need to know, and then you start, bombing into these places and you're fighting with your gear because it's the first part of the season.
Yeah.
Thank goodness that we at least are saddle hunters. Golly, some of these tiny trees and stuff. And I probably shouldn't call myself a saddle hunter. I'll do whatever. But we brought saddles and used them a lot on this trip. We used our cruisers a lot, and it's nice to be able to just bring that little seeker platform in and stick that in a tree.
Which is actually a big platform, but it's still smaller than a tree stand,
Yes, it is. And so you're not carrying in a ton of weight, right? And then you got no stand because you got your saddle on most of the time, unless you forget it. It's good to put that thing on before you leave the truck.
I walked a good 70 yards with that one on when I was a cameraman.
We both actually left the truck without our bows at a certain point in time. Hunters.
I only walked 10 yards without my bow, though.
Here's what happens. I walked 400 at least. Had to put all my stuff down and run back to the truck. Probably saw every deer in there saw me. But that's what happens whenever you get to this crunch time kind of feel, when you're like, golly, dude, it's day 3, and you were just wringing your brain out like it is a wet wash rag to just draw every bit of information about what you should do to kill a deer. And then you're so concentrated on the maps and all this stuff, you end up just forgetting the most essential part of your hunting equipment. And that's when you're like, okay, I need to sleep a little bit and do this. So, and honestly, that's a good reason to feel like, man, maybe it's time for a change, anyways, the setups on this thing in a lot of these trees were pretty difficult. And I think that I ended up using a couple times I brought in all 4 of my sticks, and a couple times I didn't use a single
zero sticks. I did the same thing. Those willows, you can get up to them, get up in them pretty easy because there's limbs, like you said, on everything. But at the same time, it's hard to get shots, and you don't know for sure that you're going into a willow sometimes, which we started to figure out, if we were or not. But that's the thing is you got willows and cottonwoods and some other junk, but those are the 2 trees that I end up hanging in a lot. Hung in some evergreens too, but a willow tree, no sticks. Cottonwoods, every stick you have plus some extra rope to get it all the way around. And it's like, goodness gracious. It's nice to at least simplify things somewhat, but I ended up doing that where I didn't have as many sticks. But the hangs were tough. I learned a lot on this trip because
I have, for a long time, thought I wanted one of those little pouchy type bino harnesses,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm not saying that I don't still want one. Thanks, Cody, for letting me borrow yours or give it to me, whatever you did. But I tell you what, trying to hang in the tree, that thing gets in the way. Because you got that lineman's belt around you, and you're working, trying to do everything between your chest and the tree, and then you got 4 inches sticking out right there. It ain't no good. I do like some of the stuff that we use, and y'all know that we use Cobra releases for, you know, shooting our bows and stuff, and yours and mine both, it cams over, so that release, instead of sticking out here, being in the way, instead of being in the way while you're trying to do stuff, it actually
goes
holds
back on your forearm.
Yeah, tight on your forearm. That way, it's just kind of hidden and out of the way. That helps too whenever you're putting on a layer, because we had situations where the mosquitoes were bad out there, and we had to put those layers on. And when that thing folded back, you just be able to slip your hand right through the sleeve. And
I like that it doesn't ding on every stick that you put up, or, you know, as a self filmer, you know, it's the camera arm and stuff like that, you know, like it doesn't ding on it because you've got it back against your arm usually. You can keep it from slopping all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, they're difficult. There's some difficult hangs for sure, and just kind of being out of the hanging shape, you know.
Yeah.
But man, look at those bike tires.
I know, dude. We're looking at this kayak trailer next to us over here, which is, it's cool, but like, I'm pretty sure that's like an $800 kayak and a $2,000 trailer he's got there. And the guy's driving a truck. I mean, if you're listening to this, man, I'm sorry. It's a cool trailer. I would probably use it for some other stuff too. Maybe he does. That's part of the deal too. Yeah. But anyway, so we kind of shifted at a certain point in this trip. Not that we were abandoning our first places, right? Because there was some possibilities there, but we weren't seeing the deer numbers, and we're seeing way more hunters than what we wanted to. Yeah. So we started trying to pop around and find maybe some overlooked stuff.
There's a lot of people we were starting to see, man, and I think that being able to see as much country as you could where we were at first, like, I think that was just kind of the plan of a lot of dudes, is like, oh, it's 85, let's just drive around and see what we can look at, and then maybe pop in tonight or something. But we decided to get into some rougher country so that we could maybe get away from people and find some deer that weren't messed up.
I guess it would be the morning before we went and hunted that stuff. I went in 0.8 of a mile, pretty much bombed in through some hills and stuff, and went to this spot and saw essentially zero deer. I saw a doe at 600 yards and then sat there on the coldest morning that we had, right? Yeah. I mean, it was like probably high 50s and windy for sun up, and then I put on my heavier jacket that I brought, and didn't see any deer, and it was pretty depressing. So that's kind of what led us to
that was the spot that we saw deer the first evening.
Yes,
right?
exactly. And apparently on the morning it is not the thing to do. And here's the other thing we're running into. We had upland hunters and all kinds of stuff that were running around chasing birds and stuff too. And, you know, more power to them. You know, woohoo, public land. But, you know, like, at the same time, if I'm being real with y'all, I would rather be the only person on that whole property. Absolutely.
You mean you don't want to be the bad dude that just is better than everybody else?
Yeah, exactly. Dude, oh my gosh. It drives me crazy, this mentality of like, I want to go kill deer, everyone else can hunt. It's like, I don't care about that at all. I just want to go hunt deer. I want to be left alone. Yes, exactly. I don't want to see anybody.
I'm tired of being told what to do.
And that's part of why, you know, I went back in there 0.8 of a mile. I didn't see anybody back in there, but I didn't see deer either.
I hunted our hay meadow spot that morning.
And you saw a guy.
I did.
Yeah, and he kind of messed up your hunt. Not intentionally, you know. No. But, he didn't even know you were there. But I
didn't see as many deer either.
Yeah.
Kind of wondered if I was
kind of.
I did have a buck bed at like 80 yards that I couldn't get video of. No, maybe I did get video of him.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was tough, man.
So for that evening, we decided to go change it up and go to a different spot. And I said, you know what, Tyler, we found some ag. And I said, I'm going to stay up here by this ag and just try to shoot a deer kind of at last light, you know, bed to feed. Because we'd established there was a deeper spot we could go into as well. And I was more than willing to let you go into the deeper spot after my morning of just pretty tough hunt, you know. And I really had good confidence in where I was going to sit.
Oh, me too. I thought you were going to smoke one, dude.
I did too, man. And I had getting this weird thing, right, where your license is good for a buck or a doe. And everybody wants to shoot a buck, especially out of state. Like I'll shoot a doe at my house or something, but dealing with a doe meat and all that stuff, and trying to and putting your buddy out because really when you kill a deer in the evening, it's pretty much you're done for the next morning unless you want to be another one of those real tough guys who only gets 3 hours of sleep. That's not me. So I didn't shoot any does. They came out with 5 or 7 minutes left of shooting light, and at the same time you're thinking, man, they're out now, the buck's gonna be right behind them. They were in there a little bit deeper. Never happened for me. However, you had a different experience.
I did. It was called a sweaty experience.
Sweaty experience. SE.
SE, man. So when I left out, KC and I kind of had to go in the same direction as you do on most public properties, a lot of them, especially like smaller stuff, and we kind of go in the same direction, and there's an easier way for me to go into my spot, but it's likely that I'm going to walk past his deer. So, thinking about access and stuff, I basically just, KC was like, man, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I think if you do walk down that regular spot, into what makes it easy,
it could affect what I got
going on. I was like, yeah, it definitely. Actually, at that point, I didn't even think about. I knew exactly that I was going to go down the fence line, right, instead of go into my spot or whatever. And so, but I was like, yeah, no, I'm going. So I went, and the first drop that I did, it was like steep, and I was like, golly, this, we've been out on some flat stuff,
4 sticks. And full camera equipment.
3 sticks.
3 sticks.
I started carrying 3 sticks last year, and I think that is a very magical number. So I've been doing that a lot.
What do you think with 3 steppers? Are you still going to be a 3 stick with three steppers?
That's a good question. I think it could be good.
Yeah.
To me, every little bit is, every stick is 2 pounds or whatever ish, maybe a little more. So it's not like a huge difference, but the bulk of carrying 4 over 3 is also a difference, because when you stack them, 4 is over a foot tall usually, or around, and when you start trying to get that in through vines and limbs and stuff, it's just difficult, man. So, and not to mention, it does add 2 pounds that you have to deal with only your wrist muscles sometimes, So it is a considerable chunk, but like 2 for me, I'm not near as monkey as you. 2, just I have a hard time getting more than 8 to 10 foot with 2, and I really like being like 12 to 16 a lot, and so it's just 3 works for me, But anyway, I went in there, and as soon as I got down into the first draw or whatever, I was like, dude, this is going to be a haul out of here, but this is magical. Like, this is awesome looking. It's just so cool. Way different habitat, like we'd driven quite a ways or whatever. And it's like, man, this is awesome. This is, almost like a daggum elk hunt or something, like it's just got some elevation. It really wasn't like an elk hunt. I've been on some really rough ones, think about the Gila and stuff, places we've been, man, rough. But, as a whitetail hunter, you like to think that you're
After
awesome.
you've been walking around hayfields.
That's the thing is we have really kicked it pretty hard, and we're tired and everything else, So it was, and it's 85 degrees or whatever, so I'm sweating real bad going in. But I finally kind of get up on top and get some wind, breeze blowing. I'm feeling good, and I kind of get back into my spot that we had looked at and talked about. And the wind wasn't perfect, but it was a decent wind. And so
we'd finally had firmly established the opposite rule of the wind.
Yes. We knew what it was going to be. So I knew that going in. I just I thought this could be a good spot. It's way back in. I think straight line. I measured it a little over 8 tenths. Straight line, and I definitely didn't walk a straight line going in. So it's probably, I'd like to say it's definitely close to a mile just getting in there.
I think there's no issue with saying that, because that doesn't figure in with the elevation loss and gain too. Straight lines are straight lines.
Yeah, there's definitely some elevation, and so like I get to my kind of spot. It's an area. It's a tree line essentially, and I'm not sure exactly what part of the tree line I'm gonna be on, but I know that this, on the aerial I can see a trail, And a lot of times we just don't know if they're cattle or not, like if there's cattle in there or if the trail is a cattle trail or whatever. So we kind of take them with a grain of salt,
Hey, guys, we've told you this probably plenty of times. Call people before you go and this and that. It's a little disheartening to learn how many WMA and public land managers, biologists, whatever, don't actually know what's going on.
Dude, even federal people, man.
Yeah.
Like, you could call them. They wouldn't know either.
No. And not that they're not doing their best, because I don't know. I'm not going to make a judgment call on that. But I'm going to say this. You still have to vet what you get from people. You can't just take it to the bank, and
well, we definitely were surprised one morning.
Yes.
Thinking there was no cattle in there.
What
and
are
there
these
was
moo cows doing?
Tons of cattle in there.
Yeah, we were assured. It was like, well, where are the cows going to be on this place? Like, oh, no, there won't be any cows. Really? That's cool. Great to know.
They're literally everywhere.
Literally on every
square
cardinal direction we could see, there was a cow.
Anyway, so not knowing there was cattle and stuff, I had my kind of thoughts or whatever. But on the way in, didn't see much sign of cattle, so I felt good, like fresh sign, or whatever.
Yeah.
And
whenever you're scouting for cattle, what are you looking for, Tyler?
I'm looking for fresh droppings, fresh dukes.
Big piles.
And big old dukes.
Cow pies.
And, you can obviously, the 1,000-pound animal puts a lot more wear and tear into a trail.
Yeah, that's right.
So I get in there, doesn't look like cattle are in there. I'm like, this could be good, Who knows, maybe this trail's from a 10-year-old image or whatever, and,
Or a 10-year-old buck.
Or, yeah. So, like, I'm maybe looking at an image of when there were cattle on it. So I got to still see this trail. So I'm thinking with the wind, I'm like, I'm going to move up to the kind of top side of this thing. Top side being, like, towards the ag or whatever of this tree line, which really wasn't super close to, like, corn. It was pretty close to milo, which I would consider corn being a lot more desirable. But I do know that they do like a milo field up there.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced that the last 3 years.
They do like about anything field, because it's just different than what's around.
That's right, man.
I think half the time on that milo, they're just out there messing around because they're like, oh, this is different.
Yeah, and it's thick.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I start working my way up slowly to the top and trying to be. It's so quiet, dude. At this point, all the storms have passed and rain heads have dried out.
Old rain head.
We have a very light and variable wind, and so I get up and I kind of looking through these trees on this tree line. I'm trying to kind of pick one before I walk in, because I don't want to spread scent. One thing that I'm thinking on my access route too is, like, you can't always do this, but I'm like, okay, when I get closer to the stand especially, like, I want to make sure that I walk through on the upwind side, because I don't want a deer, technically the downwind side, because I don't want a deer to stop on my upwind side that's smelling my wind. It's coming the direction I want them to, you know what I mean, or I think they're coming from, and to smell my ground scent and stop, or, whatever, go away. So I always try to go on the side that I think the deer will be on, essentially once they pass me from the direction they're coming from or whatever. So I kind of work to this kind of upwind side or whatever, and I end up picking a tree fairly quickly. I looked at a couple different ones, and I was like, this one has the best opportunity for shots. And we had somebody recently reach out, I think on YouTube, and say that we should do a video that talks about how to pick a tree, for saddle hunting or whatever, or technically for anything, I guess. But I think it was on a saddle video maybe. But anyway, for me, when I pick a tree for saddle, it's different. I'm looking for a different spot on the tree than I am when I'm tree stand hunting. So anyway, found the tree. And I was like, man, it's pretty good. Now, I could get up pretty decent height in it without having to use many sticks, because it's got a bunch of these, like, limbs that are, like, the size of my forearm or so. And I'm like, those will hold my weight and everything, as steps going up. And I'm like, this is good. So I actually was really quiet getting in, and I intentionally, decided to go slow and get in. And we got in there early. We laughed about
I was just in the oven up at the front.
Just getting cooked up at the front, because he had to go in a little bit early. And he's like, we're like talking strategy and stuff. And I'm trying to help him, but I'm also at the same time like, I got to go so far into here. Like, I need to get. So anyway, I got in at I had to sit there a while too, getting in there, but I felt good about it. And so I was able to take my time. I was really quiet, which ends up being a good thing, I think, because you'll find out in a minute. I get in. I don't make hardly any noise. I don't have to break any limbs, really. I had to break like 1 or 2 limbs, and I tried to do it when the wind would kind of gust up a little bit. And I get in there. I basically used one step, and then was able to use limbs the whole way up. So I had these like, I haven't really liked putting my extra sticks on the ground lately. I don't know if you have any qualms about that. But
it's funny enough, I'll put them on the ground, but I always put them on the downwind side of myself.
Yeah, I did that on a willow this week too. Same thing.
Yeah.
It's like if they're going to catch my wind, or my sticks wind, they're going to catch it from, they're going to catch me first or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm the same way. But I took these up in the tree with me because I wasn't for sure what was going to happen in this new place. Same thing like you talked about earlier. It's in the timber, so you just don't know for sure. And it ends up, that's definitely the case looking at this hunt. But so I hang. We got these rubber wire things that you bought us that are pretty cool, and I'm able to hang one of the steps in a tree, and the other one I'm hanging off my belt and on my cruiser. And I end up setting up, getting everything ready, and I can see these. I can see that I had already seen this, but I validate that trail is still there, and it's a deer trail. And I'm like, this is good. This could be real good, But everything towards the ag fields from me doesn't really funnel them too well, so I was a little bit worried that I was still sitting in a pretty large like DMA, if you've ever heard us talk about those. And so anyway, set up, chilling, and kind of looking through Instagram kind of early, and texting the group and stuff, and texting KC and asking him about stuff. And it's typical me, like, man, I just don't know. I don't feel too confident, I mean, like, if I don't feel like this is the best funnel with the best deer thing about to happen, like, most of the time I'm like, I don't feel super confident. Because most of the time you go out and you don't kill a deer. You know what I mean? And so I'm doing that kind of thing where I'm like, man, it feels good. Everything feels good. I just could easily have a deer not come through bow range here or whatever, So anyway, I'm sitting there, and it starts getting kind of, prime time where, like, deer in the past few days have been out for an hour now moving around, and I hadn't seen anything. So it's like 7:30, right? I end up turning kind of around to my downwind side. I'm checking it a lot. I hunted hard, man. Like, I actually was not on my phone a whole lot when I was hunting, especially because there's so many leaves on the trees that, like, if you don't keep an eye on it, a deer could literally be in your shooting lane before you had a clue he was in the world. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing with that thick stuff up in there.
Yeah.
You're out there in that more open stuff, and you're just in a little habitat pocket. If you don't see a deer, you could probably look down for quite a while and then look back up and check, because, and if you do see one, they're a quarter mile away, and you're like, okay, he's headed this way. I got plenty of time, whatever.
I had some trees, even in the open stuff of the willows, where I could not see a chunk, and I would be like, man, if this dude, I can't shoot this dude till he's at 30 yards or 25 yards. Mm-hmm. And if he walked straight in from that big, huge blob of willow right in front of me, I would never know. So I spent a lot of time this evening and a couple other evenings as well. I literally would just check my 5 or 6 spots the whole time. I would just be like, I'd look here, I may glass it, put the binos down, and then look over here. And I can only see 40 yards this direction, so I know there's nothing there or whatever. And I watch it for a second, make sure nothing moves. And I go over there and I look, and I just did that the whole time, man, because I'm like, it's getting time that stuff should move, And so this place is remote, like, I'm back in there. I'm expecting to see deer. I turn around about 7:30, check my downwind side, because that's where one of the ag fields is. It's Milo, and I don't expect there to be a ton of deer that direction, but there's definitely going to be some deer, I feel like. And as soon as I turn around, I can see a little hole in all the trees and stuff out there next to that Milo. And at like 90 yards, I see a deer. Immediately know it's a buck. He's big enough, I put my binos up. He's walking towards my wind, and he's actually, I had been dropping milkweed, and I did not expect him to be like I expected him to be a good 15 to 20 degrees off my wind still, like from the edge of my wind, you know. And I glassed him up, and I'm like, holy smoke! I thought he was a 10-point at first. I texted all the dudes, you know, but I got footage of him. He's a slick 8, but he's big. He's bigger than the one I shot. And
what?
Am I supposed to cut that out? Anyway, I see this big deer, and I put my binos down. I get the camera on him, and I'm trying to get it on him. It takes forever. I get it on him about the time he runs off. Get some footage of him. You'll see it in the video. And he winded me. You know, that's the thing. As soon as I put my binos down, that he had stopped, and it looked like he had my wind. And so when I got finally on him with the camera, he pretty much ran off. And so, dude. Big 8, biggest deer I've seen maybe in Nebraska while hunting.
And I tell you what, when you haven't seen any bucks hardly all week, and then you wind one,
depressing.
Depressing.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to punch myself in the face, dude. At the same time, I don't know that where he was at, I don't know that he actually walked by a tree. I don't know that I could have killed that deer from a tree.
It's not that you did anything wrong. Yeah. It's just sometimes just like, the deer win. That's just the way it goes.
And the thing is, man, when they get your wind, you feel like, well, this spot is ruined, or that deer will never be back. And while I'm on this trip, you know, oh, dude, he started blowing, and it was interesting because this blow was like almost none I'd ever heard. And I don't feel like you hear bucks blow a lot.
Usually when a buck blows, in my experience, it happened to me one time last year, it's one big, I'm mad.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it was. But he did it a bunch.
Yeah.
He probably blew maybe a dozen times, and he would do this. It was not, a doe is almost like a sneeze. It's like violent, quick. His was like... It was like this long, drawn-out, big breath of air, and it wasn't so violent. It was kind of just long and deep, And I was like, man, I don't know if that's a buck thing or if he just doesn't completely know what I am or if he's, what the deal is. But he's saying something different than what a doe says, you know what I mean? Anyway, interesting thought, but I literally got a text like the same time I saw that deer from, I think, HTH or somebody, and I was like, they were asking about deer or something, I think, and I was like, I have a giant blowing at me right now. Like just happened at the right time.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he goes, like I said, it's about 7:30. Shooting lights at 8:45 or something like that. It's the end. So sunset's at like 8:15, and so I'm sitting there. It's quiet again, super quiet. Deer's finally stopped blowing. Wind's barely even blowing at this point, and I'm just sulking. I'm like thinking about where I'm going to hunt tomorrow. What should I do, and all this and that. It starts getting dark. It's about sunset, and I'm not like super mad, but I'm pretty mad at the situation. I'm tired and put out, and walked my tail in here, and I'm like, man, I'm about to leave out of here right now. I'm tired of this, like I'm going to walk in the light where I can see, and I don't just trip the whole way out of here. And I'm still hunting pretty hard. I'm still checking my spots pretty regularly, and I hadn't looked at my phone or anything, so I got nothing else to do, but I am deflated, like you said. And all of a sudden I look to a spot that I really didn't expect. I mean, I thought deer could come from, and so I was checking it because it's pretty wide open in that direction for me. But I didn't necessarily expect deer. Like, it wasn't my top spot that I expected them to come from. And I turn, and at 60, 70 yards probably, there's a buck standing there. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And at this point, if he's going towards ag, straight towards ag, he's going to hook up on a trail that's like at least 40 from me. But I feel good about that right now. Got a new bow, shooting straight, shooting darts, and I felt good about shooting 40. So I'm like ranging that trail, and ranging some other stuff where he might come. Once he's not moving too fast. He starts kind of like easing up towards me here and there a little bit, and he's kind of taking this path that's not so flat, and I'm like, he's kind of coming towards me, and And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe he walks on the other side of this bush towards me. That's like 30. I'm like, this is good. I'm going to get a 30-yard shot at this deer. And then he kind of straightens back out towards me again. And I'm like, what in the world? He's walking towards me again. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll shoot this deer at like 20. This might be good. I got this trail that I was talking about earlier. It's at 14. So I'm like ranging some stuff. I get a range for 25. I'm like, all right, money. I put the camera there. I'm filming him as he's coming in. I put the camera there. And he walks up to it. He's still walking right at me. It's so quiet, so still. I'm 15 foot, which is like high enough for him to, at one point, literally burn a hole through me, or through my direction at least, and not see me. But it's also low enough that like you don't feel real comfortable drawing a deer when a deer's looking at you in the dead calm of the evening at 25 yards, And that's what he's doing. And so he puts his head back down and starts walking. And what I figure he was doing is he was bedded down on the side of that hill right there, and he had heard that deer below and waited 40 minutes or whatever and got up when he thought it was time to get up and move, and was wanting to go kind of in that direction, but also wanted to make sure what was going on so that he felt comfortable. So he's kind of working out of his bed there and looking the whole time. He was looking hard, and he was walking straight towards where that deer was, which was 90 yards on the backside of me. And so he's like perfectly upwind and everything. And he's like on edge, dude. It is so quiet, man. And he's just like tiptoeing, and he'll take like 2 steps and look, and he'll peer up ahead, straighten his neck out like sneak mode. And he's looking. Like I said, he gets to 25. He goes through my camera, and I'm like not feeling good about the shot. So I like put it down, much closer. He comes up into that window, and I'm like, I just cannot draw it. Now he will 100% see me. And so, long story short, I don't get the shot on film, which that probably doesn't surprise anybody. He comes straight at my tree, pretty much, and I'm hoping he'll like look a different direction or put his head down and like sniff something on the ground or something, right? And like, so then basically all I can see is the top of his head and I can draw, right? Until he gets to about 4 yards or 5 yards and I'm on top of him, I don't feel like I can shoot this deer or draw on him. And he gets to that point and I get drawn, and I was amazed because he's still like, I can see his eyes, you know what I mean? And so like, I fully expected when I drew at 5 yards, because he put his head down real low when I drew, but I expected him to like pull it back up and catch me about halfway through my draw and then look up at me, and then I was just going to thump him right in the neck hole, you know what I mean? And he kept his head down through my whole draw and then stopped at like 4 yards. And I'm like, money in the bank. I don't have this on film. I'm sorry, y'all, but I've got some good pre-roll of this dude, coming in and stuff. It's cool. And he starts walking again, and I'm assuming at about 3 yards, I finally decided to pull the trigger. And I didn't want to grunt stop him because he was on edge, man. He would have flipped out at 3 yards from something grunting above him, or whatever. And so I just shot him on the walk at, straight down, which I've never shot one like that. And basically what I was trying to do is put it over his near side shoulder blade, basically. So put it right over the top of that and go straight down and kind of come out the other side of the lung. And I hit maybe a touch back from where I wanted to, which he's walking, so that could be assumed that would happen. I hit him about probably 3 inches back. I thought it might be a touch high, but it ended up it wasn't. It was dang perfect almost, except for just back about 3 inches from where I wanted it to be. And he blitzes out of there. KC saw the video.
Oh, my gosh.
He goes, I think that's the fastest I've ever seen a deer run.
It was insane.
Like, he's going downhill,
Yeah,
and,
when we're watching it in slow-mo, and it still seems fast.
Yeah. And he's like, I was like, I couldn't believe it happened. I don't even know if my interview, I hadn't watched this footage or anything really of what, when the events around the actual shot. And I almost couldn't talk, dude. I really couldn't talk. I said some things like where I was like, okay, I'm sorry, y'all, I can't talk. And I was just in shock that it all happened and that I shot the deer. And at the same time, I'm like worried, like I always am after a shot if I don't see him fall, So he like bails over the ridge where he just came up from, and it looks like he's almost crashing when he leaves, Like I'm like, man, that looked good. I thought he was going to fall right there. So I I pack most of my stuff. I leave like some sticks in my saddle platform up, and I pack my stuff up. There's enough daylight for me to basically get out right at dark, about shooting time if I hoof it, which helps me because I don't have to walk in the dark with a headlamp and everything else in this really thick, place or whatever. And so I was like, I'm going to go back, get the dudes, get the production equipment, or get KC or whatever, and get the production equipment, and we're gonna go find this deer or whatever. We've got to review footage too. That's what you got to do if you film your hunts, right?
Oh yeah.
So we get back to the truck, and I start reviewing it, and like I was on him like. Once he left out and he got to about 25 yards, I was on him for the next 50 as he's flying down this hill. It was pretty cool. It was pretty good footage. I think it was a little bit of luck, but I ended up getting a lot of good footage of him leaving. It's just slow motion, so we get to watch and we can see like what we pretty much assume is blood shooting out the top and shooting out the bottom. And he is tail down, hoofing it. And I had actually gone out and looked for a little bit of blood for about 2 or 3 minutes, but I just didn't want to go too far, and I didn't find much. I was on kind of the wrong trail, but he also was going like 70 miles an hour down this thing.
Yeah, it's that feeling whenever you go to throw like the leftover contents of your cup and your cup holder out the window, and all the water just turns into vapor. Yeah, that's what he was doing. Yeah. He was going so fast that blood was just going psh.
Yeah, it was like dissipating almost.
Yeah. What'd you shoot him with?
I shot him with a Grim Reaper Whitetail Special.
Hot dog.
Yeah. That's one of your favorite things to say, I think.
It's just kind of fun.
It is fun
You're
to
supposed
say.
to watch him fall with the Grim Reaper.
That's what they say.
But
I didn't.
And, there's... Expandables get some hate for good reasson sometimes. I had to switch between different ones for different hunting scenarios on this trip because I did not want to shoot that thing through any thicket.
Willows.
Yeah. Because it's going to grab something and go crazy if you have to shoot through anything at all. But whenever you're shooting a, heavy duty good FOC arrow, no worries, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like I picked up the arrow at 4 yards.
Yeah.
Like I walked down, I glassed it, and I was like, I think there's some pretty good blood on it. At first, I could see the broadhead really good. Mm-hmm. And I glassed the broadhead, and then I grabbed. We had those vectors have like a big white fletching section at the end, wrap or whatever. The front of the wrap didn't have a whole lot of blood on it, and I'm like, dude, did I miss high and just miss lungs and just skin wound this dude or what? An arrow traveling straight down to a deer at 3 yards disappears quick. Mm-hmm. So you don't really know exactly where it hits sometimes. Anyway, I'm like glassing that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I just missed. I messed my opportunity up. This is such a hard hunt, and I'm so mad at myself, And then I got cameras going. I got everything going through my mind. Anyway, I glass back down there. I find the fletchings, and they're covered in what looks to be pretty good blood, but I can't really tell. So I get down and find it. Turns out the vector, being a big heavy arrow and heavy duty and durable, goes straight pass through with a 2.5 inch cut. Is that what those are?
So I don't know.
Like
3 blades, and it's a wide one.
But we're talking about like I don't know exactly how that way works, but I think it's supposed to be like a 2.5 inch across cut. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. But actually, you have more cutting surface than that.
Right, because there's 3 blades.
3 blades, yeah. But so if you were to do a diameter, it's 2.5. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And it pushed that thing through there all the way through. And you're talking about going from like not sideways through a deer, but from the top to the bottom and through, in the rib cage. And another thing that I noticed when I was looking at the video is that the deer had like a lot of blood underneath when he was jumping, running, like we could see where it came out. And it looked like it was in the chest,
Yeah.
But when I got down and checked the arrow, first thing I saw when I picked it up was a bunch of stomach matter. And that's why I was not sure how good the blood was when I was looking from the stand, is because it was kind of brown and green. And I twisted it, and there was a ton of blood on like 2 of the other fletchings. Good looking blood, like bright red. And I'm like, this is odd. But I have never shot a deer from straight down, like that really. So
I don't think we've talked much about this. It's not the ideal shot.
No.
Right, like you would prefer to do a broadside shot.
I would rather have shot him on the trail at 14 yards broadside, or even just facing me and through the neck hole or whatever, you know?
Yeah. But we're in the business of shooting deer.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, I don't want to say like what's your backup plan or whatever the cool thing is nowadays, because you don't want to shoot a deer on purpose in a bad spot.
You make the best shot you can.
That's right. You make the best shot you can, and you did.
Yeah, it's not like I should give him a Texas heart shot or nothing, you know. I mean, this is a shot that people shoot on TV a lot.
Yeah.
And like, so watching that historically over my lifetime, I've seen lots of deer killed that way. So, you know, and it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, plain and simple, like pushed it through. So I'm a little bit worried at the time that, you know, how is this deer hit? What is it? We started doing some anatomy research like we always do, you know.
Oh, man, every time. I just need to download all those pictures and put them, like, in a file on my phone or something.
Yeah. And what we figure out is something that you don't think about too often because you're shooting a different style shot, maybe. But it looks like in some of the anatomy pictures that we saw that the heart sits pretty much right next to the stomach.
Yeah.
And so
the lungs kind of wrap around the heart, and the stomach kind of sits almost like on top and behind the heart.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody knows for sure what it looks like inside of a deer, to tell you the truth of the matter.
Yeah, once you open them
every
up,
anatomy diagram is different.
Slightly different, yeah.
And, yeah, once they've been shot, half the time it's mangled on the inside, and then the other half the time they're laying on the ground, so you don't
Upside
really know.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't really know how everything laid out in there while he was on the hoof.
Right. So, but what we start to assume is that maybe there's like the fletchings the half of the fletchings that are super red are heart, and the half of fletchings that are green are stomach.
Esophagus or stomach or something like that. Because if you're going straight down,
right.
I mean, you're going to hit esophagus or stomach no matter what.
Yeah.
Unless you're too far back, in which you weren't.
Yeah.
You know?
And so another thing you and I started thinking about, especially after we watched that blood shoot out the top, is that it might have hit the, I said, you know, some sort of vein or something. You said it's the aorta that goes along the spine. It's pretty big.
I killed an elk by hitting that one time, so that's how I know, you know, and that's why, like, it's weird when people talk about the dead zone on deer. It's really kind of like that doesn't exist. It's kind of a strange thing, but that's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, I would imagine that shooting straight down, you missed vertebrae, but you hit around it.
Yeah.
And that thing's as big around as your pinky or more. That aorta is up there. I mean, it's a big.
I got a bunch of blades going through there.
It's a big artery.
Yeah. So, you know, I was actually really surprised when I let the shot go where I thought it hit, he didn't drop like spine shot, you know. And so, being, you know, that I would have seemed to have barely missed the spine, I would think that that's a plausible option that it did hit the aorta, and then we see the blood come out the top and stuff, you know. So I'm like, man, this is probably good, man. And the way he's running, he looks hit like if y'all ever watched Nameless take off after he got hit in that video, same deal, like tuck tail, just like this is bad, you know, whatever. Well, we
that's what the deer's thinking.
Yes,
the deer's thinking this is bad.
Sorry, the deer's thinking this is a bad thing. So anyway, we get all our stuff together. It takes time. We kind of just deciding what to do, but we go in and get a bite to eat, I think, and maybe something else. I can't remember. But we were just trying to fuel up, give the deer time, because we knew this was going to be a haul. Because he also ended up going further back in. You know, I'm walking a mile or more maybe back in, and he went further the other direction. And so I'm like, whew, at least you went, you know, on the public, but he's far. So we go back in there, and I show, you know, K.C. where the hit is or where I shot him and everything, and we talk about some stuff. We start working down the hill. We're not finding much blood, and we get kind of on the edge of the hill going back into this further, you know, draw or whatever. And I'm like, man, this is a long ways back in here, and I hope that he's hit good. And we kind of work our way down into the draw, maybe 20 or 30 yards. And I had this real powerful flashlight that I used for blood trailing, and I turned it on and just looked down into the bottom of that canyon at probably 70 or 80 yards maybe. and there's a big old white belly down there.
Golly.
And I was like, that's him. I was like, right, you know, and I was thinking, I know that's him, you know, but I just want you to make sure you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. Anyway, we go down there. He rushed off the mountain in 15 seconds and died is what happened. He was stiff as a board.
Dude, he took off the side of that thing. You can see it in the clip. And it's like he never hits the ground again.
Dude, I don't see how he would have hit the ground but once or twice on the way down. It was steep, dude. And he was flying. And anyway, I kind of almost half imagined we would get down there and there'd be broken tines and stuff. But we get down there, and it's just a big old nice 8, man, just, you know, 16-inch wide, 8-point. And he's got like he's been rubbing a little bit. Like, you know, he didn't just rub the velvet off, but he's got like cedars and stuff in his antlers, you know, in the bases and stuff, man. It's just like, goodness, like, this is too cool. So we take a lot of pictures and some video and stuff. Ends up, you know, we have to actually quarter this deer up. Luckily, KC's done the gutless method a lot and is a very good and willing friend and jumped in and did the hams, and which is kind of difficult, and he knows where the ball socket is and everything.
I'm going to make a confession. I'm surprised I was able to get those hams with just a Havilon. But I think that's a deer thing. On an elk, I don't think you'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's a big old... Because the ball socket in a ham is a true socket, right? So, like, you have
Is it cartilaginous around a lot of it? Yeah.
Yeah, and on a whitetail, that cartilage is pretty thin. Yeah. But on an elk... Like, you got to have a big, stiff-bladed knife.
4 times as thick.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
Yeah. So I was surprised able to. I thought I was going to have to whip out my other knife to make that happen, but
you made it happen.
I did it all with a Havilon. So that's cool.
Yeah, and really, I was really surprised at this. When we walked up on him, I was like, oh, look at all the ticks. Well, he had the plant. I think a lot of people call it deer lice. So it's a plant that like has these seeds that stick on them or whatever.
Yes.
It wasn't ticks. I didn't see a single tick on him, actually.
I don't think I did either.
I have
seen one on me before.
Yeah, you have. Recently.
Yes.
I was just surprised. He was real clean, dude. We kept the meat real clean. It's going to be a tasty deer.
He looks good.
Yeah.
He looks real good.
He's going to be tasty, I think.
And he, like, I don't know. I wish that I could see what happened when he bailed off that mountain.
Me too, dude.
But I thought there'd be some bruises or something, too, from that. But maybe he was all out of blood so that they don't bruise. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe he just kept his feet, dude.
They're agile.
They are agile, man.
He didn't look like he crashed out too bad at the bottom.
It looks like he went to the bottom, stood, and tipped.
Just
and I think
laid over.
I think there was some blood, a little blood spot where he had stood for a quick second and then just tipped over, you know.
Yeah.
But, dude, it was amazing. And we ended up having to quarter him out. Like I said, we packed him out. I took the majority of the weight because I was, you know, the guy who shot him. And so I had probably a 60-pound pack.
Well, you had all your gear because you'd left everything in.
I had to take 3 sticks, and I took my saddle, my actual saddle in because I was going to go up and get all that stuff. I wanted to be safe, so I had my lineman's rope, my saddle. So I had that, and I had my platform, which, you know, probably all that's real close to 10 or 12 pounds, easy. And so add that on top of meat, some camera stuff. KC did a lot of work, and we packed that sucker out over a mile. By the time I got back, I was beat, and we ended up getting a hotel that night, luckily, because it was Labor Day weekend, and we luckily were able to get a cancellation room right after it got canceled.
Man,
I was so thankful because we were so sweaty and hot, and we got showers and got kind of still hyped up. You know, I had to wind down a little bit, but we got in bed probably before 3. And it was a long, late night, but, dude, I've never done anything like that when it comes to deer hunting.
It's fun,
man. It was a one-of-a-kind experience, man.
It really, really was. And I don't know, that whole night, I never got, like, sleepy tired. I've been on some elk pack outs where, like, I'm sleepy and I'm tired of walking.
Yeah.
I didn't really get that night. I was just hyped the whole time, you know? It's cool.
Well, maybe it's also not, you know, a short elk pack is mile and a half, 2, you know, or 2 or 3 miles or whatever, and a long deer pack is a mile, you know.
A real long one.
Yeah.
You know, that's just not something that you even have the opportunity to do for whitetail real often. Yeah. So it's cool.
It was, maybe we just, you know, never got quite to come down off that high for 30 minutes while walking the extra mile or whatever. But, like, man, it was, I don't know, just such a blessing, man, to be able to do that and to the way it all went down, and just also, I carried some weight and burden after I shot the deer, because I always do, and then to find him real easily is just another blessing for sure.
Yeah, man, it's awesome deal. I'm super pumped that you
and I appreciate your help, dude. I know I've told you that, but
absolutely,
dude, this dude's a champ over here, man. Just taking
choking up over here,
taking all the work that he can get, man, and helping out as much as possible.
It was fun, man. I enjoyed it a lot. It was cool, and it's just fun to hang out with you and shoot deer and see deer getting shot and stuff. It is nice to have a hunting partner that you have confidence will also shoot something from time to time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I'm not like making sly remarks to anybody who I've hunted with in the past. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just nice to be able to rely on somebody to also have that enjoyment, because I didn't kill anything this time. So if I was the only one on the trip who I actually had confidence in, there wouldn't be nothing dead.
Yeah, be coming back real hot and tired.
That's right. Which we got real hot and tired after that. So we, of course, took it easy the next morning. Got us some K.C.'s breakfast pizza in celebration, which if you don't know, you need to know, because that is some of the best stuff around.
That's it, man.
And so we did that and made a plan for the evening again, and decided to go back into the same area, and I was going to hunt because, Tyler saw another buck, and it just seemed like there's a lot of deer in the area. We shined some eyes that night whenever we were walking out, and there was just still deer around. So we thought there was a chance. And we got to split the load of what all we had to carry in, too, so it was a little bit easier going in the second time.
Yeah.
So I went in that night and didn't see near the activity. Saw some does, but just not much. And then kind of had some decisions to make, because we could stay there, and I think, like, in retrospect, like, it would have been a good idea to stay there and do a couple more hunts. I don't know. It's hard to say. But whenever you go in, there's a deer carcass, down at the bottom. The coyotes were raging over the next couple of days, and you smelled it all up, when you're in there messing around. It's pretty hard. It wasn't hard for me to go in there once,
right?
But it's hard to go in there multiple times expecting to see more instead of less.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's kind of like the experiment. Like, well, how bad did we booger them? And we go in there, and it seems like we boogered them pretty bad.
Yeah.
So we decided to pull the plug. Could not find the hotel room for that night, so we went and set up
tents
camp
at like 11 o'clock.
After we had pulled it down about 2, went and set it back up. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And slept and went and hunted the next morning. Did a short night of sleep, and didn't hardly see anything then either in a place. And this is where I start kicking myself, right? Because I'm on the clock at this point in time because the hunt's counting down. We've missed a couple hunts because of weather and unpreparedness and packing your deer out, which is not by any means like, well, Tyler, I can't believe you made me do this, but it's just the way it goes.
Right.
And when you hunt as a team, that's the give and take you have. Like, you're there to help, and it's fun. And I would rather it happen the way it did, you know. But it is the fact of the matter, we missed some hunts. So this is, like one of my last mornings. And then it's when you don't see much, you're like, oh, man, you just don't have anything to build on. And at this point in time, you and I are thinking, okay, we're a long ways from home. Should we drive an hour or two or whatever to go get a little closer to home midday and hunt a different area? Because there's nothing to keep us around here right now anyways, right? And so looking back, maybe I shouldn't have hunted that area that morning, because it was one of these, like, well, maybe they hadn't boogered this up because it's close to the road kind of things, and apparently it had been, because there wasn't much going on there, or just there wasn't deer in there. I don't know.
Right.
It's,
well, that's the thing, is like, we don't know if the EHD had been a thing or not.
Yeah, and you don't go in, and at least I don't think it's a good idea to go in and boot scout this stuff intensively before you hunt it when you're there for the hunt. Like, you're definitely going to booger stuff up if you do that, right? So, like, we don't really know everything that's going on. All you can do is just work off the observations you have to and from the stand and while in the stand. So, either way, we only saw a couple does, or just one doe maybe that morning.
Yep.
And decided, it's worth.
We saw a couple.
I don't remember. I remember there being more.
We
but I
saw
don't remember where they
one
were
kind
at.
of back towards the sun, and one far coming from down the edge of kind of a hill.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's doe and fawn over there.
Yeah, doe fawn.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyways, we decided to go to a different area that was a little bit closer to home and spend our last day there, which, in the sense of getting home a little bit sooner, was not a mistake. But in every other sense, seems to be a mistake. And I'm not going to just wail and complain for the next 15 minutes, but I'll just tell you, we spent the whole evening of the last evening driving around. Well, I do need to explain this a little bit. We map scouted a place that we found on the map, loved it. It was going to be good no matter what the ag was in. There was enough ag around. It was good creek bottom. Everything was just going to be bad at the bone. We decide to go vet a couple more spots that afternoon before we head over there, just in case we don't kill that night, that we would have to go hunt in the morning, because the wind was going to be a little bit different, and we wanted to hunt something kind of on the way home instead of driving the wrong direction. So we go and look at these other spots. They look okay, whatever, it's fine, we'll figure out something there. Just wanted to make sure, what ag was where, and alfalfa and this and that and the other. Well, then we head to the spot we're going to hunt that evening, pull up. Well, first of all, we had some minimum maintenance road issues where we had to go hoopla all the way around this thing to try to actually get to it. And then we pull up, and there's a truck there. And it's a decent-sized place, and this guy, assuming guy, might have been a gal, but, odds are in your favor to say it's a guy. So, assuming
he can be whatever he wants to be.
That's right, dadgummit. This is 2021. If you want to say you're a potato, you're a potato.
That's it, man. Mr. Potato Head, Mrs.
Right.
Potato Head.
That's right.
Potato Head. I don't even care.
Potato Head, Z Potato Head, or X, whatever they want to call it. He was Latinx, I think is what he was. But
there you go.
anyways, he was on the north end. And we started to go in on the south end because it was a good-sized property, and thought, it's not ideal, but we're plenty far away from each other that we're not going to interfere with each other's hunts unless this guy walked in the north and went all the way down to the south, which is a bad idea. So if we mess that up, he's already messed it up. But anyways, we start walking in, and then we run into boot tracks from a day or two previously, and we're like, okay, this place has gotten some pressure. I'm thinking it. Tyler brings it up, and we pull the plug soon thereafter, and then start driving around all over the country, hiking with all our stuff in 2 more different places, try to make different things work, never do, and then we end up driving around the evening and supposedly trying to figure out a plan for the next morning.
It sounds not too bad, but I'll say this: it's about a top 3 or 4 of one of the worst evening or bomb ends that I've ever had on public land.
I'm just trying to not complain too much and go on and on.
It was terrible.
It's bad.
We were getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. There was no wind. We were sweating, wearing long sleeve sweatshirts and stuff, trying to keep the mosquitoes off. I was, and like, I think I might be dead right there. And there's just like, nothing's panning out for us. It was bad, dude. It was bad.
Yeah, it was a bad evening. And we drove around. I'm ticked just because I feel like I hate wasting time on hunts, man. It just drives me insane.
K.C.'s the ultimate frugalist.
I cannot stand it, dude. Literally, we cooked a pack of wieners, and I saved the last one that nobody would eat, and ate it later that night.
You tried to shame me into it, and he stuck it in the door.
I stuck it in a granola bar wrapper and stuck it in the door. And I'm glad I had it, too, because that's the night you killed your deer, and it gave me a snack.
There you go.
You
offered it to me before he went back in there. I was like, right.
Frugality paid off, man.
It did. It almost always does.
But so then that evening, it was just terrible. Drove all around all these different places, saw other people hunting in places we thought might be cool. We did see some deer, and we saw some country that if you had some time to figure it out, you might go kill, but there was never that layup like, here's a bean field with a creek next to it, nobody's on it, y'all should go hunt that. That just didn't happen.
Yep.
And went and got us some supper after dark. And we're sitting in the hotel room eating supper, and I told Tyler, I was like, man, this is not my style, but I'm thinking about not hunting in the morning because it's just a shot in the dark at this point in time. We don't have a place that we're in love with. If we were to get up and go hunt, we would get 5 hours of sleep and have to drive home all day tomorrow, or we can sleep in a little bit and get like 7 hours of sleep and feel real good on the way home tomorrow. So made the call, which is not my style at all. And part of that is me trying to be considerate of you, so I'm not guilting you into it, but like I don't want to just be, an authoritarian, like, no, I'm the hunter, we're going. That's not the way you want to be.
Yeah, but I'm there, dude. I'm part of the team, man.
I know.
Team member.
And I appreciate
I'm an
it.
element team member.
Well, I appreciate you just being willing to just like go right into cameraman mode as opposed to be like, I'm going to sit in a hotel today, you go hunt and I'll be back, or whatever. Which I'm okay with you doing from time to time. Yeah, exactly.
We sending some people out with you.
That's right.
I'm going to go to K.C.'s.
Oh, man. This might be the furthest south K.C.'s there is right there.
That's what made me say it.
Golly.
Like, okay.
But, yeah, that's pretty much Nebraska. I don't know if there's anything else that we missed or should talk about or whatever. I think the big thing to take away is that there's going to be a big buck video come from this sucker.
Big buck.
Tyler finally – dude, I don't know if you remember this, but it was in the off season or late last hunting season or whatever. You were talking something on Facebook about like trying to find something new to do early season next year, and there were a couple people like, man, Tyler, you need to go, and prove yourself. Not like they weren't challenging you, but like just saying like you need to go get it done there. You feel like you can't just walk away from Nebraska or whatever. And I'm glad you didn't, man. I really, really am. Because
I was walking away from it, and then you were like, hey,
that's right.
Here's a fishing lure in your back, and I'm going to pull you this way.
Yeah, so
I'm glad I did too, man. I'm glad you talked me into it at this point, but and it was a tough hunt. Like it could have easily been one of the hunts where I'm like, okay, for sure, never going back to Nebraska again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think that now we'd be willing to go back to Nebraska.
I think so too. Yeah, man. We figured out some different things, and some things we're still a little questioned on, and but man, it was a fun hunt. There's a BBV coming, like you said, big buck video, and is that trademarked? Anyway. I'm excited about that. We also have a lot of YouTube stuff coming through this month in September. So if you're getting juiced up for deer, now is the time to be subscribed to our channel. We've got the whole Ranch Buck series from last year, maybe the biggest deer I've ever killed. I hadn't scored them or anything, but big deer that I killed in Texas. It's a 10-part series coming over 2 weeks, 5 videos a week. And it's a filmic kind of cinematic type.
Yeah, it'll be
video.
fun. Lots of big deer in that thing. I've been seeing some clips and stuff. It's pretty exciting.
In the meantime, we're going to be doing some stuff back home, putting out some ultra cameras, aren't we?
Oh yeah, and I think that what we should do is we've done this in lots of different formats throughout the years, where we do like the preseason scouting Texas public land thing, and I think. Absolutely, it's helpful. Postseason scouting actually this year meant more to us, I think, than what the preseason will. But since we're going to be running Moultrie Delta cell cams a lot, it's going to change things somewhat, okay? Because we get that instant information, or at least twice a day, or however you set them,
Yeah.
But I think we should do a video, and maybe this isn't the only one, but maybe we should do a specific Texas public land trail camera strategy type thing, and really talk about the trail cam stuff, because I know maybe even beyond a lot of other states, Texas people in particular use a lot of trail cameras on public land because, quite frankly, most of our public land has antler restrictions, which means that like you could be hunting an area where there's not even a legal deer in existence there, and that trail camera means so much to that. And I think that I'm not criticizing it at all. We do a ton of it, right? We use a bunch of trail cameras for this reason. So I think we should probably concentrate on that.
And that's why we haven't put trail cameras out yet, is we've kind of got this thing where it's like, man, really the main thing we need to know on some of these properties is there a shooter this year in there?
Yes.
Like we've done so much work that we've got some spots. Not that we don't want to have new spots, because we postseason found some new spots that I'm really excited about. But I think we've kind of narrowed into where we can kill deer on some of these properties. We just need to know is there a shooter in there this year? And not to mention, like, another good thing about having trail camera information on these bucks is not just whether there's a nice buck in there or not, but like truly for me to be able to see a deer and go, I don't know, and not to have 30 seconds to make my mind up, as opposed to
if he's wide enough.
Yeah, if he's wide enough. They have to be wide enough. So,
which is a thing I actually dealt with last year because I had that public land buck. We didn't have any trail camera data of him.
Yep.
And it was like I made a call, and then looking back, like, man, he was probably wide enough.
Yeah, and this year, hopefully, we get trail camera data of him.
That would be sick.
I mean, he'll be wide enough this year.
I know. But here's another thing too that one of the reasons we don't have cameras out yet is the preseason shift of ranges is a big deal where we live.
Right.
And I think it's a big deal in a lot of places. But we've learned that pretty much any pictures you get from June until, September 15th even, they don't really mean a whole lot except for some fun trail camera pictures.
Yeah.
I don't think
we've had a few micro regional, micro local.
Yeah.
Like it depends on the property is what I'm saying.
Oh
like
yeah,
if the property kind of is isolated in between big swaths of coastal pasture or whatever, then it's different.
But overall, it ain't worth getting out there when it's 105 and going and checking some trail cams.
No.
Instead we're going to kind of tactically go in there and drop these things on a cooler day in September and go in there once, and then we're getting season data. And that's what's going to matter. So I think that I'm excited about it because I have some thoughts and some plans about where I think we're going to drop some cameras, and it's going to be good.
Yeah, me too, dude. And I think on top of just finding shooter bucks, like we're going to have these things running for a while in some of these places, and I think we're going to learn some stuff about hopefully October, but also about the way those places behave in November, and if there's multiple shooters in there, which really starts to help your odds of getting on a shooter deer on Texas Pub.
And it also makes you feel better about like maybe we should go hang together and make it easier. Because there's some times whenever that's advantageous for us when we're filming and stuff. Speaking of, I'm ready to have old Eric Gentry down with us so that we got the film guy. Guys, after this hunt, pretty much Eric is going to be around for everything. He had to be an Illinois man for some reason this go around, but after this, Eric's going to be around, so y'all probably hear more from him. He'll be helping us out a ton with all the electronic technical stuff, filming a bunch, and hopefully killing a few deer in the process too. So I'm stoked to get the season rolling. If you haven't, be sure and subscribe on YouTube, follow us on all the social platforms, all that stuff, because we are ready to start some hype. Actually,
that's right.
The hype has started.
It has
Tyler
started.
has killed a big deer.
Hype.
It's in the truck right now. Let's go. Remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.